I get asked all the time from viewers, commenters, friends, things along the lines of, is this watch good for the specs, or should I go for a watch with a sapphire crystal? But after a few years of collecting, buying and selling now, I've realised something I didn't expect to, and that is, watch specs just don't really matter. So in this video, I want to talk about why we obsess over them and why that obsession might actually be holding you back in your collecting journey. So why do we chase watches with great specs? Well, when I started, I thought specs were everything. I'm talking about the end all be all. No sapphire, instant write-off. Less than 100 meters of water resistance, trash. And an H35 in any watch over 300 quid, criminal. And I remember making a video on the Seiko Presage, the older models before they upgraded to sapphire and such. This was nearly 2 years ago. And I was talking about specifically the cocktail time. And now when I look back at that, I think it had a beautiful dial and classic proportions. But back then I absolutely slated it. Why? Because it had 50 meters of water resistance, an NH35 at about £600 in terms of retail price, and even a mineral crystal. But the truth is, and I'll be honest with you here, I had no idea what I was talking about, right? I mean, I hadn't even owned one long term. I was just repeating what others said about it. Sure, I'd be hands-on, but I still hadn't worn over a decent span of time and actually experienced the watch. And that's the problem. Beginners get hammered by this specs first mindset where you're told if a watch doesn't tick every single box, it's just not worth your time. And the loudest voices are often snobs with spreadsheets, not real experience or passion for the industry. So as time went on in my early collecting, I chased watches for specifically specs alone. I specifically looked for watches which would have great overall specifications and finishing and such, without paying any attention to anything else. Watches that I thought are great value, that are perceived as such because, well, you're getting specifications on par with a watch twice the price for half the price, so of course it's good value. But I noticed a pattern with them, and that is that I literally never wore them. They just didn't connect to me on a personal level. I bought them because I felt like I was getting a good deal, but they didn't give me anything back. I mean, they weren't actually giving me any value because I didn't wear the bloody things. It's funny because you can pack a sapphire crystal, ceramic bezel, 200 meters of water resistance, and a top grade movement into a £400 watch, but it doesn't mean that it's actually good, just that it's well specced. And people are really getting caught up these days in getting those two terms mixed up. Well specced does not equal good, good does not equal well specced. They're not the same thing and they are not interchangeable. I mean, I had these pieces with incredible perceived value, specs greater than life itself and whatnot, for a price anyone could manage. But that wasn't even enough to make me wear the bloody things. They let me down because the specs just didn't equate to emotion or wrist presence. And I'll just say on a side note, not in a rude way or a way to put down any brands, but if we're being realistic, fully realistic, if you have a little chunk of change in your pocket, you have any interest in the watch industry, and you want to make a watch with amazing specifications for a low price, you can do it. You don't have to be a genius, anyone can do that. Even I could do that currently. But that doesn't mean anything beyond the surface level. And that's something I have come to understand. Even if a watch is well specced, the movements could be off the shelf. The case could be industry standard with the dial and hands made third party. And when you break it down, it's not really a watch with passion or love, so much as it is just a collection of third-party parts, a Frankenstein of the real hard work and passion in the industry. There's nothing actually inherently wrong with that. In fact, I actually quite like that. I am a micro brand guy. If you're looking at any watches under £1,000, generally I prefer micro brands because of what they offer in the price range. But the point is that specs don't equate to the emotion and presence of a watch on your wrist. They just don't. Because specs are easy to copy, but feeling, emotion, love of the watch isn't. This is the first ever wristwatch I bought with my own money. It is a Mido Multi-4 Extra Flat from 1954, and I think it is absolutely gorgeous. Now, it cost me £50, which is almost nothing for a watch, and spec-wise, the movement is terrible by today's modern standards. It has a scratched acrylic crystal, it has pretty damaged dial, you know, you could call it patina, but it's sort of damaged to the point beyond patina. Well, it's a type of patina, but most people wouldn't want to wear this. But I love it. And I love it more than watches I've worn worth 1,000 times that. I've worn and been hands-on with every Audemars Piguet, every Patek Philippe, every Vacheron Constantin, all of the big boys that you'd know, right? But this £50 watch that spec-wise is absolute garbage means more to me than any of them and will always get more wrist presence than any of them. Even when I get a Patek Philippe Calatrava, my favourite dress watch, one of the vintage ones, I love those ivory dials. Even though I'm going to be getting one of those in relatively soonish terms, I'm still probably going to wear my £50 Midomar. And I know what you're saying. If specs don't make a watch special, then what does? Well, I'd say it's how the watch makes you feel on the wrist, how it sort of feeds into your life in your day to day. You're not buying an F1 car to test its limits, you're just buying something to wear, appreciate, love, and for some maybe even flex a little. All of these things of which specs don't affect at all. You don't carry a loop with you every day, let's be realistic. You're not going to be staring at your watch really close every single day, wondering how good the finishing looks that day. That's not what you're going to do. And you're not going to be actually using the 300 meters of water resistance on a Seamaster 300. How many people do? Probably less than 1% of the people who own an Omega Seamaster 300 have gone deeper than 50 meters in the water with it, or even dived with it properly. And dimensions are helpful for sure, but even they lie. Two watches can share the complete same measurements and wear entirely differently. What matters is how a watch molds to you, the personality it has, the role it plays in your life, the way it maybe does or doesn't fit into your wardrobe and your general dressing aesthetic. And here's a fun thought related to what I was just saying about my watch. Many of the most expensive watches ever sold at auction are vintage pieces with, in comparison, terrible specs by modern standards. A £1,000 micro brand today would absolutely decimate a vintage Daytona in terms of build quality and precision. But no one cares, because watches aren't tools anymore, they are symbols, they are expressions. A £50 vintage Seiko can feel more alive than a £1,500 spec monster. A £15 Casio can charm you more than a Submariner. Watching isn't about logic anymore, so much as it is about expression and personal taste. The £10 million Daytona isn't as well specced or as well built as a modern day micro brand in the £500 to £700 range, yet everyone chases the Daytona. Of course, specs aren't completely useless. If you're a diver or work in construction or just want peace of mind, specs do matter. Robustness, legibility, accuracy, it all helps. But let's be honest, not many of us are diving. We're not racing and we're not putting our watches through military survival training. We're wearing them to the office, to the shops, in our day-to-day life, in our house. We're not having to test the limits of what they're capable of. And even then, a £200 G-Shock does absolutely everything a £9 grand Submariner does, but better for a construction worker. And I mean, even divers literally don't use dive watches to track things anymore. They've used computers since before I was even born. I mean, dive watches' primary function and reason to be created is completely obsolete, yet they're the most popular type of watch. So sure, specs obviously affect reliability and robustness and how you have to worry and care for the watch, but in the day-to-day, that doesn't really have an impact. And on top of that, if you really do love a watch and you're passionate about them, you're going to look after it anyway. And similar to an older car where it's not as well made, I prefer them because you build a relationship with them, caring for them, doing things. I grew up with my grandfather and, like working on his car, for example. A 1936 Citroën Traction Avant. Working on that basic 4-cylinder engine, built a relationship with that car. And now I love that car more than any other in the world, even though it barely can go up to 70 miles an hour. And right now, I am even experiencing the spec hype and what I'm trying to explain in this video against it. And that is, I'm getting myself a Rolex Explorer 1 soon. But I'm torn, because there's the 114270 and the 124270. Now the 124270, we'll call them the 11 and the 12 for making it easier, is much better quality in terms of bracelet. The finishing is technically better, the movement is far better, it has a 3235 rather than a 3135. Just overall, it's better AR coating, just literally everything with it is better. But I aesthetically prefer, even though it has the same proportions, the worse made 114270. Because it has diagonally brushed lugs, which I love and prefer to the straight ones on the more modern variation. It has a slightly slimmer case, which is perfect for my small wrist, and it has less of that modern Rolex shine that I dislike, as well as it doesn't have that horrible reflector ring that repeats Rolex and the serial in the middle, like on the 12 reference, which I personally find quite unattractive. And even though my friends, including a bloody watchmaker, are all saying, no brainer, go for the new one, it's the obvious choice, it's better made, I'm really feeling more drawn to the neo vintage variation. Because the specs aren't swaying me, it's something more than that. It's how the watch feels, how you feel about the watch. Specifications are good if you're in a field that needs them. But in the day-to-day, for a daily, for anyone who's not working in the bloody military or something, there's just absolutely no need for specifications that are high, right? Watches from 200 years ago, pocket watches and the wristwatches from 100 years ago are literally unbelievably crap quality compared to a modern cheap watch, and yet they've stood the test of time. If you look after Cartier Santos Dumont, the first ever wristwatch created in 1904, literally there's still ones from that year and close years after it which in the modern day are still running perfectly well and are still gorgeous and in good condition. And that was when watches were made way worse than they are now. So realistically, any watch over like 300 quid that you get today will outlive you, absolutely, unless you specifically try and break it. And that was the point of the video I wanted to get into, because, again, they're important, but I hate when I see people that love the design of a watch or that don't like the design of another and move to the one they don't like the look of because other people are bullying them into saying that the other one's bad. Just get what you like. Ignore what the people like that say. If you like a watch and it's at least not like complete garbage, like at least it's 360 nail stainless steel, industry standard level, it's fine. Specs are easy to measure. But watches aren't numbers, they're feelings and personal expression. So if there's a watch you love, but the forum says it's trash, ignore them. Forget the sapphire, forget the water resistance, and forget the movement tier. If it feels right on your wrist, if you love the watch when you try it on, get it. At the end of the day, if you're willing to pay the price tag associated with the watch, then that's what it's worth to you anyway. Anyways, I do hope you enjoyed. I know this is a bit of a different video, but I'm really trying to move away from reviews. Because reviewing things is fun and I enjoy it, But this is my passion in the industry, right? Micro brands and stuff, they're fun to work with. Some of them are incredible. Christopher Ward specifically, along with Veneziano, Clements, Heron, a few of the brands I've worked with, they're really nice. But, oh, Zelos as well, I need to mention. But my passion in the industry is about the industry, not one particular watch. I love the whole industry. I want to talk about it. I want to go into detail about certain things, aspects of the industry, where things are going, debates. And if you don't care for that, fine. Just watch my review videos. Don't bother with these. But if you do look forward to that, I can say I will be coming out with a lot more of these. I've wanted to do videos like this for a pretty long time, but I never went into it because I realised they don't really get good views until you're a bit bigger, blah blah blah. I do need to grow at a certain rate because I've gone into this full time recently. And this video is very much so from my favourite YouTube creator called This Watch That Watch. I'm sure you know him. Laid back style and everything. Just the perfect watch YouTuber. I love his stuff and I want to do more things similar to that style of more informative, me and you back and forth content. Anyways, if you have anything interesting to ask me that you want to know, anything at all, even topics to go over, comment it and maybe I'll go over it in a Q&A sometime soon. And never forget, time keeps ticking, so use the time you have wisely.